jackets. You're very welcome. It's great to see such a huge turnout on a night when there's a lot of work being done on the ground with canvassers and everything else, plus of course a big Champions League game on tonight as well, though I suppose the big one really was last night, or even a bigger one tomorrow night. So if any Liverpool fans try to sneak out at 8 o'clock, we'll be fine. Just in terms of basic housekeeping, the toilets are out that door to the left and to your right, and obviously if there's any emergencies, the fire doors just in the back there with the blue light. Tonight, I suppose there's a couple of ground rules that we want to put across prior to starting. Hopefully your phones are on silent. We did get an opportunity, you have had an opportunity, Julie's been going around with a few slits of paper there for people who want to ask questions. You have an opportunity to do that right up until the Q&A starts. So if you have any questions you want to put forward, or any you think of in the next half hour, then please put them forward. The way we're going to run this today is we're going to give each of our candidates 10 minutes each to talk about their background, their mandate, their plans for the future if they're elected, or basically whatever the three themselves want to put across. Whenever the questions come through, we understand and we recognise there might be a few that overlap or around the same theme, so we will be sifting through them to try and so we get through as many as we can in the space of an hour we're giving ourselves for the Q&A. If you put your name to the piece of paper, I'll give you an opportunity to ask the question directly. If you want to do it anonymously, then I can ask the question on your behalf. It's really up to yourselves. What we're going to do is try and restrict it to one question per person, because there is a big crowd, and we are anticipating a lot of questions. If it's directed at a particular candidate, then we'll outline that to give that candidate a chance to respond first. But as far as possible, we are going to give all three candidates an opportunity, as far as possible, to respond to whatever the topic is you want to hear about. I'll then throw it back at the person who asked the question to give them 1 or 2 minutes to respond to what they've heard if they want. So I'd say, because we've got a large crowd, we're going to try and manage it pretty strictly as well to give everybody, or as many people as possible, an opportunity to feed into the discussion. We also ask you to be respectful. It's not easy being a politician, I can imagine, and so we would appreciate if you keep the questions to policy matters, to party matters, and try and not personalise it. Otherwise, we're going to have to move on. So before I introduce the first speaker, I just want to introduce the panellists that we have here in front of us. To my immediate left, we've got Ryan McCready, who's representing the Ulster Unionist Party. He was elected in 2019 as a councillor, and has been a serving councillor since. He's also a member of the Foyle Commission, and has had a quite impressive track record in the military over the years. So you're very welcome, Ryan. In the middle, we have Elizabeth. Lizzie's from New Baltans. She's a mother, a grandmother. She's been in New Baltans for 35 years, has worked in the health service for 14 years, and has a law degree from the University of Ulster at Magee. And her particular interest are locally based issues, so we wish you well. You're very welcome. And finally, we have Gary. Gary's been the servant member of the Assembly since 2005, when he was co-opted to replace Maurice Devaney. He acted as Junior Minister for the Executive Office from February to March 2021, while Gordon Lyons was acting Agriculture Minister. Gary then replaced Gordon Lyons permanently as Junior Minister in June 2021. Gary was also elected to Council in 2011 at the age of 20, probably one of the youngest serving councillors at the time. So you're very welcome, Gary. Okay, folks, so we have, as I say, we're going to give each of the three candidates 10 minutes each to talk about their policy. We did a wee kind of FA Cup draw to start, and first it came out, let me check this here. First it came out was Ryan, wasn't it? So Ryan's going to speak first.
Thank you very much, Brian. Like in the FA Cup final draw, it's probably a fix that I got the first one to go. I just want to say thanks to the organisers for putting this together. It actually makes it easier for me to get you all in one room as opposed to going door to door, day and night, and speak individually. So I'm thankful for that opportunity. And it's wonderful to see all of you here to take time out, missing the game, to actually take an interest in the future of your politics, because you've got a vested interest. But I want to pose a rhetorical question first to get us going tonight, and before I outlay my vision to you. And it's, if you keep doing the same thing over and over and over again, and see if you expect different results, this time around you're going to be sorely disappointed. I can guarantee you that. There comes a point in your life where you must challenge the status quo. You must think differently and have the confidence to think differently. And tonight I'm going to urge each and every one of you precisely that, to think differently. But tonight's not about me, it's not about Liz, it's not about Gary. It's about each and every one of you in this room, your children, your mums and dads. Because when I think about it, and they look at me, they say, well, I'm not really a career politician. I'm not full-time, I'm part-time as a prankster. So what experience do I have? That's the question about you they asked me tonight. So I thought about that. Now I've confessed that I have no real experience in politics. But as I said, politics is simply about people. You, your family, your friends in our community. Speaking for them, listening for them, and standing up. And actually, crucially, to deliver for them. And that's based off, if you make tomorrow better than yesterday, then you've done your job. So when it comes to people, I can tell you this, I've got enough lived experience about people, know how to manage, how to lead, and work as a team. So prior to my decision to go into full-time politics and as a candidate for the Assembly elections, I chose service, not self. I've no shame in that. I joined the military at 16, and I've served for 20 years all around the world. I've met loads of interesting people, done some pretty cool stuff. And I went from Ukraine to Afghanistan and everywhere in between. And I was humbled to serve alongside brave men and women from our country and to lead them in battle and on operations. And it's such an honour for me that I'll take to the grave, and nobody can take that away from me. During that service, there was a Union flag that was about that small, and it sat on my shoulder here. So we talk about Union flags and Union and Union of people. I wore it with immense pride. I stood up for it, put my life on the line for that union of people. That Union flag that I wore has my blood on it because of being wounded in action and to stay with my men on the battlefield. So now when I remember and reflect back to the first time, those couple of weeks of joining the military, I remember this. People were negative, people wanted to drag me down, people wanted to call me out, and be pessimistic and negative. They were the naysayers. And they came out with things I'm starting to hear along this election. McCready can never win a seat. McCready can't do that. He's got no chance. Didn't stop me then, and won't stop me now. I see in my 10th year of service, so 10 years into the job, as a young man from Tullyally, I actually got awarded the UK's most outstanding soldier in the entire British Army. I was ashamed of that because my friends never came home from battle. But yet I did, and I had this accolade. And it's only now that I can really open up and tell people about it now, because there's veterans out there who need us to open up and talk with each other. And when I got that award, and I reflect on it now, it was the naysayers, the fearmongers, well, they were wrong, and I proved them wrong. And the lesson I learned that day is pretty simple. That's one I want to share with you. Don't be held back or let fear drive your life or your decisions. Don't let negativity and pessimism make you vote one way or another. So imagine what I could do in my 10th year as an MLA if you give me a chance to prove myself yet again. So let me assure you that I will apply the same level of determination, integrity and commitment that I demonstrated during my working career in a position of an MLA if I get that chance. So that's the past. I'm here about the future. I want to share my vision for unionism of the future. And it starts pretty simple, about encouragement. And I think we should encourage our young people and our children in everything they do. It can be through education, sports, arts, culture, anything they want to do. We need to give them the best chance of life. No child should be left behind in our society. We must remove all the barriers to inclusion. Learning difficulties, autism, complex needs, whether those disabilities are visible or invisible. Let's face it, folks, our tomorrow belongs to our children, to our youth, and they deserve better than what we're getting today. Here's an example. I met a young girl throughout the last couple of months. Despite her personal difficulties and setbacks, she actually managed to set up a small business at the age of 16. That's a bright future. That's why I want to invest in our youth and prepare them for their journey through life. Secondly is inspire every single one of you here. Through job security, apprenticeships, where you want to start a business, or do something you've always wanted to do. Inspire each other every single day. Because I want you to wake up with a sense of purpose every morning, whether it's going to your job, further education, or whatever it is that gets you out of bed that day. And at the end of the day, you should be fulfilled. You should be going home with a sense of pride. Because let's face it, our today is only made possible by you. It's the people, it's the workforce. Without you, there's no day-to-day life. So here's an example. I met a guy about 2 weeks ago when I was out canvassing. Spoke to him on the door, he wasn't voting. 2 days ago I got a text message from him. The third day, he came out canvassing with me. And 2 days ago he joined my local team. He was inspired to action. Let's make Northern Ireland work for everyone. Finally, is to reassure, I'm not going to point any fingers in this one, is to reassure our older generation. You know who you are, life's been pretty tough. You are valued members of society, you really are. And we can learn so much from you in politics and in everyday life. Your wisdom, your experience, lived experience. You should be able to enjoy your retirement in a warm home with full bellies. Timely access to the NHS with dignity and with sensitivity. Yesterday I received an email from an elder member of our community. He feels forgotten. He feels left out, and he is unable to heat his home. Is he any less of a unionist that he wants MLAs to go back to work, to help heat our homes and put food on our table? I think he deserves better. I think we need to learn from our past and focus on our future. So let me leave you with this. During this election campaign, I didn't have the luxury of a full-time MLA salary, the benefit of a public funded office and the great staff which would come with it, or holding an MLA seat previously. Instead, I went straight to the heart of the people, the grassroots within our communities. I've listened to their frustrations and their aspirations. Surrounded myself with positive people, committed activists, and members of the public. This has been the foundation which underpins my vision to encourage, inspire, and reassure each and every one of you. I believe now is the time for positive change, pragmatic and confident unionism in going forward that delivers for everyone. I need to entrust you over the next week to make I need you to follow your heart and make a decision on the polling day. I will respect your decision, irrespective of what the result is. I'm ready to stand up and serve again. It's whether you have me or not, I'll leave with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan. Next up we have Elizabeth, do you want to come to the podium?
Yes.
Okay.
Hello everyone, welcome here tonight. I want to thank the organisers also for the opportunity of being here. Such a speech from Ryan that I have to outdo, which I won't be able to, so I'll just be honest with you. I only prepared a few wee lines just think it was just an introduction to who I am. So basically I am Elizabeth Lilly, I'm the TUV candidate for Foyle. I was born here in Londonderry, and I think we moved to Donaghmana when I was about 4, so I was reared up in Donaghmana. And when I got married in 1986, I moved to New Buildings, so I'm still there. So I'm 36 years there now, not just 35, 36 just passed there in the end of March. I have also 4 wonderful grandchildren, so we have a correction there. I've just been blessed with a wee grandson there last month. And I have 6 children. I also work for the health service. I've been working as a carer in the railman sector now for the past 11 years, and I worked in core care before that, so I'm not now in my 15th year of working for the trust in the care. I also went on and took time out of my job and went on to McGee University, where I have graduated with my law degree. I'm very proud of that. I wish I'd done it a lot younger years. It was very challenging trying to run a house in Rare Winds and look after them on a student loan, on grants and fees. But I did it, and it was challenging, and I beat it, and I succeeded, and I'm very proud of that. I also have been a long-standing DUP supporter. I have been supporting DUP since the very first day that I was allowed to vote in this country. I was very supportive, and I joined the TUV in 2020 because of the DUP stance in putting the sea border down the Irish Sea, separating us from the United Kingdom, Great Britain, Northern Ireland as we know it, but where the Northern Ireland part is now graduated out of a barrier. So we're petitioned down, and we're not standing as the full United Kingdom citizens as what we would have been without this border. The policies that I'm passionate about would be the removal of that sea border. I'm very passionate about getting that removed. And this was one of the reasons I joined the sea border. I joined the TUV was because of the sea border, and that is basically why I am now no longer a DUP supporter, but I am a TUV supporter to get the removal of the sea border. As we know, it was always the United Kingdom, Great Britain, and Northern Ireland, and that principle is no longer there with the sea border. So what I'm asking people here tonight and elsewhere, and to say to your families, to vote for principle and strength and integrity, and vote for the TUV on the 5th of May. Thank you.
Thank you, Lizzie, well done. Last but by no means least, we've got Gary Button. You want to come up here, Gary?
Well, thanks Brian, and thanks to the other 2 candidates for joining with me, and it's good to see so many people here this evening. I always welcome the opportunity to have open conversations, and it's very important for me to engage with people as I've been doing each and every day since joining politics. It's just been over 2 years since the Northern Ireland Assembly was restored after 3 years of being held up by Sinn Féin. In that time, I have been working hard on your behalf to deliver for Foyle and for the North West. As a junior minister in the Northern Ireland Executive, I have provided a voice for the North West at the heart of our government. But I just want to take a few minutes to outline my record in this constituency, and then go on to what I would say is my vision for the future here in Foyle. So in order to set out my record, I also want to take a step back to when I first entered the political arena. I entered politics at the age of 20 years old, with one main aim, And that aim was to make a difference within my community. As a rural councillor, the minute that I was elected, I got my sleeves rolled up and immediately got to work on the issues that mattered to my constituents. Now, that was everything from lobbying for new road signs in rural areas to assist emergency services to get the properties, from helping people to get housing, from helping people to get, and communities to get 3G pitches and community facilities, to get the planning permission for rural farmers. But the important thing was that I was always there, maintained a record of speaking out when it was required. Of course, all of this was before the era of remote meetings. You had to stand up, you had to show up, and you had to turn up. And it has been my honour to have been there for those who needed it when they needed it. My experience in my delivery as a councillor gave me the platform to put my name forward to stand for the Assembly and become its youngest member. I've served on various committees in Stirling, the Environment Committee, the Economy Committee. I served in the Northern Ireland Policing Board, and most recently as the Junior Minister in the Executive. At all times, I sought to use that position on the committee to speak on behalf of those I represent, scrutinising legislation as it was brought forward, but also ensuring that there was a voice from the North West. I have a consistent voting record on a range of issues affecting every aspect of our society and every single person in this room. I am the only representative from this constituency who raised concerns about the flawed integrated education bill, the disastrous impact of the Climate Change No. 1 bill, and also the impact of legislation against some of the most vulnerable within our society, the unborn child. Of course, being an MLA, one part of it is at Stormont, but the other part is working at a local level. My constituency office, located in the heart of the waterside, has remained extremely busy each and every day, with hundreds of constituents requiring help with various different issues. And I'm very proud and honoured to have an amazing and dedicated office team in Nairee, Rachel and Claire. We work together as a partnership. It's not about self-promotion. It's about working for people. It's about quietly, confidentially and sensitively working for those who are in need. The past 2 years have been particularly challenging with the emergence of the COVID-19 pandemic and the impact that has had on our society. But during that time, we were able to help countless numbers of constituents with advice on furlough, assisting businesses, working closely with those who required support right across various sectors in our city. But despite the pandemic, over the past 24 months, I've continued to fight for and deliver progress in other areas. Jobs and investment. It was an honour for me to cut the first sod for the 152-bed Edmonton Hotel, announcing £15 million investment and 120 additional jobs for the Edmonton site with our First Minister. I worked with key stakeholders to secure planning approval for a new legal store in the waterside, which will bring £5 million investment to the area and 35 new jobs. I was able to support investment plans at the President Link Retail Park, another £5 million investment and 110 jobs yet to come. I supported affordable and social housing schemes, most recently 255 units at Ballyone. We were able to secure a new medical school at the University of Ulster Magee, and I continue to campaign for investments in our roads and our infrastructure. The Voluntary and Community Centre, I was able to secure and lobby for £159,000 for forest search and rescue, bringing life-saving equipment to this area. I've supported over £2 million funding for local community facilities. I've worked with local sports clubs to secure funding for their local premises. I've secured additional funding for Ulster Scots tuition and provision in the Foyle area. I've also held constituency meetings with churches and other voluntary organisations to help them access funding. On health, I've campaigned for additional funding for mental health services, not least the Crisis Intervention Service. I've raised concerns of local people about the increase in suicide rates and the mental health crisis that exists. I raised the ongoing issue of access to GP services, which affects people right across our society. And of course, each and every day we speak on behalf of constituents to the Western Trust to raise their issues. In education, I was able to host the Education Minister here to the city over this past 2 years, meeting with young people and staff, ensuring that each and every child has a fair start in life. We work closely with local schools as well to ensure that we can support them in their expansion plans with major capital works and student provision. In the economy, we were able to host the Economy Minister to visit local businesses who he helped to provide support to during the pandemic, working closely also with him to deliver the new Maritime Museum at Edmonton. And finally, in relation to the economy, we were able to secure the Londonderry to London air route until the end of March 2023. This is just a snapshot of the work undertaken since the restoration of the Assembly just 2 years ago. There's still much more to be done, but I have worked very hard and tirelessly for delivery in this area, and I'm grateful for the opportunity to share with you this evening. Of course, it will also be an opportunity for us all to reflect upon the fact that other candidates wishing to be elected have served locally on the council for longer than the current restoration of the Assembly, and therefore keen to hear what they have delivered and what they seek to do over the next number of years. But with your support, I can continue to fight on behalf of the North West. With your support, I can continue to play my part in delivering the DUP's plan for Northern Ireland. That involves fixing the NHS, providing investment to cut waiting lists, implementing the reforms that we all agreed to back in 2016, training more GPs, rewarding the staff, and ensuring that we end the over-dependence in the overpriced agency sector. It's also about keeping schools like the one we're in world class, supporting them and ensuring that they can grow and expand, modernising the curriculum for the 21st century, widening access to breakfast and afternoon and homework clubs, capping the price of school uniforms, but also restructuring special needs services. We want to get on with growing the economy and bringing jobs here. And I've been delighted in recent days to have received correspondence that several hundred jobs will be coming to this city in the very near future. That's things that I have been working on personally with my DUP colleagues. But as I already mentioned about the protocol also stands in the way, and we need to see that removed, and that's one of our priorities. In terms of helping working families, we want also to deliver 30 hours free childcare per week, ensuring fair access to preschool places, financially supporting hard-pressed families with an energy support payment, delivering energy efficient schemes as well to better insulate our homes. But at this election, I want to make it clear that I'm standing on my record here in the Foyle constituency. I believe that I am the best candidate, not only to secure the only unionist seat in Foyle, but to ensure that there is a strong, dedicated representative at Stormont. I believe in hard work. I believe in never taking anyone or anything for granted. I believe passionately in the people of Londonderry and those that I represent. So on the 5th of May, I ask that you come out and vote Middleton 1 and help me to continue to build a better future for Foyle. Thank you.
Thank you, folks. We're just sifting through the questions there with my colleague Derek, and there's quite a few good ones. We're hopefully going to be covering social issues, economic issues, and also voting patterns. The first one, I think, leads on a wee bit to what Gary referred to, and it's from Joe Montgomery. Joe, do you want to ask?
Go ahead.
Okay. Joe's referred to the economy, Gary. I think it's specifically geared at yourself. And he's heard of talk of up to 20k jobs coming to the Northwest, and well-paid jobs, kind of jobs with good prospects over the next 5 years. But I think he's worried that like always, it's kind of going to go to the central economic area of Belfast, and he's asking how, if you're elected, will you be able to ensure that those quality jobs come to the Northwest?
Thanks, Joe, for the question. It's one that I've sat down with 7 or 8 Hustings events, and it's one that comes up on every one. We do have to fight for what we have in the Northwest, and that's why it's important that you have an MLA who's going to go and do that. Over this past 2 years, I've been able to establish the High Street Task Force, which specifically looks at how we can rejuvenate our town and city centres, but also how we can bring jobs. But my focus has always been in ensuring that where developers or investors want to invest here, that I can do everything I can to ensure that, first of all, that they get their planning permission, which is a major issue in this time, also ensuring that they have the right contacts and trying to get local people employed as well. I mentioned in my speech in terms of directly the things that I've been involved in terms of bringing those major supermarkets, Lidl, and indeed the expansion plans at the Crescent Link as well. I mentioned this in the previous panel, just 2 weeks ago, I received a letter from a major company who established in Belfast. They were able to create 124 jobs in Belfast. They're looking to establish here, but unfortunately the planning system has held them up. So there's a wider issue in terms of, yes, we need to promote jobs and investment in the Northwest, but we also need to take responsibility ourselves. We also need to take responsibility in the fact that when investors want to come here, the processes are far too slow. So that's something that all of us have an onus to try and address. But I want to give my commitment that I have a record of bringing jobs and investment to this city, and I'm going to continue that if I get the opportunity by getting support.
Thank you, Gary. Ryan, do you want to respond to that?
Joe, good question. Major investors, 100 million, 150 million, that's serious investment in the city. You go around Europe, you go around the Americas, the United States, you look at a couple of issues, and Gary's right, planning is a huge issue, and it's a huge constraint to here in this city. It's only one. You know, the biggest turn-off to these investors is, when you look around the world, they bring in 100 million, 150 here, they create 50 jobs, 20 jobs. First thing they look at is, has it got the workforce in the city here? Yes, it does. We're hard working, we want good and well-paid jobs, and to be respected as a worker. Secondly, look at the infrastructure. Has it got the infrastructure to get these people where it needs to go? And the other one is, and this is crucial, is where we're being let down right now. If there's no stable government in our country, most people don't even take a second look at our country to invest, to create these jobs. So if we're serious about investing good jobs and everything else which is mentioned, you need stable government. That means taking your seat at the executive table, forming a government, and do your job. Get in there and do it, and stop looking at excuses and holding us back for the next 20 years. It is that simple. Vote for someone who will go and take your seat, form an executive, and just do their job. It's that simple, folks.
Will you comment on this?
Yes, one question. Thanks, Joe, for your question. Does this work?
Yeah.
I'm going to try and answer that. I'm not all up on it and about all the investments and that for Northern Ireland, but one thing is for sure, that if I were chosen as your MLA, I would fight for jobs. But jobs are not enough. We need proper wages. Like, I'm working in the trust, I'm sure you all know the crap pay raise that we got. It's not acceptable. It's still well below the price and the rises and the living prices that we're having here now with fuel and gas and electric. So I'll be fighting and putting a voice out there for the jobs, proper wages, and that people are not struggling. As for MLAs, over this past 25 years, they have not put money in my pockets. They've not invested in the workers or the workforce that we have here in the city. And it'll be one thing that I will basically be advocating for is for jobs and for well-paid jobs and for well-skilled apprentices and fair apprentices for the young people coming out of education, because they're not fairly shared out at present. It might be too high of a grade there to get in towards it, whereas we want to basically open it all up for different age groups so they can all have that skill in apprenticeships. Thank you.
We've got another anonymous question here, and it's kind of leads on a wee bit to what we've been discussing here just now. Social housing and road infrastructure on the water side has been neglected while housing swells en masse on the city side. What do we plan to do about that? Go back to yourself on that one, Gary.
Yeah, well, look, it's an issue again that's been raised with us regularly. We've been able to secure some additional social housing in and around the water side, and it's good to see that. Is it enough? No, it's not. Part of the issue is to do with land availability within the waterside. We've been working with various housing associations over the years to try and ensure that they bring their investment in their housing stock here to the waterside. The most recent one which we've been involved in is the 255 social houses. Specifically, it was the DUP who made the call for those social houses. Initially, they were all private housing in Ballyowen. We were able to secure a significant element of that to be social housing. It's about using that influence and that, I suppose, power to try and ensure that where people come in, that they understand that there's a real need for social housing. But also in terms of our ageing population, the need for bungalows and disability access, those are things that we need to see. But of course, when we go back to the question around infrastructure, we need the infrastructure to be right. Unfortunately, the condition of our roads in and around, particularly the rural area, is absolutely disgraceful. One of the reasons that they have given for that is the fact that there's currently a legal challenge in relation to the roads contract. That being said, the roads haven't had the investment that they've needed, or haven't received the investment that they've needed for quite some time. That's why we've been calling on the infrastructure minister to immediately take action, repair the roads, bring it up to standard, and ensure that whenever developers come in, that they then have the network to get people to it. But there is a conversation as well that's happening in and around Ballyowen around ensuring that when developers come in, that they also pay their fair share to try and improve the road network in and around the area. And that's why the likes of the Collar Roundabout, for example, we will see additional traffic lights and we will see additional safety measures. That's been brought in because of that private investment. So yes, we need to do more, but we also need to encourage that public and private partnership to ensure that we can deliver on it. Thank you.
Thank you. And just as a follow-up to that myself, the Radius Housing Development in Everton Primary School, your thoughts on it, the shared housing, social housing project that's starting to bring in new tenants. We're hearing a lot of complaints that there's a lot of young people from the PL community have been trying to get into that development but haven't had any luck. Do you foresee any, or can you comment on why that is, why that might be, and can you foresee any social problems going forward with a mixed housing estate in what was traditionally a PL waterside area?
Yeah, I think this is an issue which we know all too well because we're actually out visiting today because there have been issues which have arisen and we've been on hand to try and help those who are affected within that area. The difficulty being with the housing executive and the housing list and those lists within the housing agencies is the fact that when people put themselves forward, the housing executive don't look in terms of religious background, for example, and they look at what's the particular need. Are there any, so how have they got their points? Is it because of additional medical needs, or is it to do with homelessness? Whatever reason somebody has the highest possible points. And of course, there's a bigger issue in terms of intimidation as well. Because if somebody is intimidated out of an area, they receive significant numbers of points. And people can be, of course, there's no justification for any type of intimidation, but people can be intimidated out because they're actually causing a nuisance in an area, and then they're getting new properties in these types of areas. It is a major issue. It's a difficult one to be honest, to try and address because, as I say, religious background doesn't particularly come into the equation. But what I would say, and the one positive in all of this is people want to live in the waterside. People want to live in those areas because they're good areas, they're safe areas, and there's plenty of community facilities and activity in those areas. But there's a wider issue around antisocial behaviour, and it's something that we deal with on a daily basis.
Thanks, Brian. Just can I extend that conversation? Maybe start with yourself, Ryan. There's been a tradition or a history of kind of population movements of the PL community out to the periphery of parts of the city here. We're talking about New Buildings, where Liz is from, Tully Alley, where you're from, and I understand you're living out in
Don't tell my people where I live.
New Buildings now. But I think part of the issue that we're finding is because of lack of availability of social housing, and then the competition that Gary referred to in terms of points. Young people from the waterside are being forced out into the periphery. And is there any guarantee that the social housing in Ballyowen will meet the needs of the PL community?
No, there's no guarantees. There's no guarantees in politics, folks. Anybody that tells you that or makes you a promise, can't keep it. 40,000 people are waiting on the housing executive list right now. They only build 2,000 per year. You do the maths, and I wasn't great at maths. I got about a C or a D, but even I can work that out. That's not even taking age off the waiting list for the housing executive. My commitment and in the manifesto for the Ulster Unionist Party is to rebuild it. It needs restructured, the point system needs reassessed, it needs to be fair. There are people bringing up, they've been on the housing list for 6 years. That's inexcusable. In 2022, in Northern Ireland, in the United Kingdom, in Europe, in this day and age, that's unacceptable. We're going to say we're going to fix it. You can only fix these things if you get into government. And secondly, you're not going to change it with an annual budget every year. No business on the planet can survive on an annual budget. It just doesn't work. You need to have a 3-year budget that covers all the departments for a programme for government. So that like some investors can say, well, hang on, there's actually money coming. I'm going to commit to another 1,000 houses or more here. So, we can talk about all these good solutions. If you don't have a functioning government, nothing happens. We're left in the Stone Age. Didn't work in 2017 when Sinn Féin walked out. It's not going to work this year when Jeff Donaldson takes us out of the executive. The only people who suffer is you. It's the PUL community, it's the CNR community, it's everybody looking for a house. Religion shouldn't come into it.
Thank you, Ryan. There's a mother, and don't mind me saying a grandmother too, of young people who are growing up, going to be looking for housing in Londonderry. What's your thoughts on the potential shortage in young people, their opportunities going forward for proper housing?
Yeah, well, basically, I have a son, and he's 34, still living at home. He has no children, he's not married, and he cannot afford to go out into a house. This is the problem. There's lots of private companies able to buy the land. Why is the housing sector not buying the land? This is not what I'm thinking. What has the MLA's been doing? Why are they not putting the pressures on the housing sector to build more social housing? I am not saying that basically just because my son's still living at home, I love him, I'll keep him for as long as he needs to be there. But the reality about it is that our children can't afford to go out. So you're actually looking at an age group, say between 21 and 35, still living at home, because they can't afford to go out and move into their own home and start their own home because they can't afford the ridiculous rent prices. If we do have these energy houses, I'm not against having energy houses, but what I am thinking, if we have all these mod cons, it's going to keep the rents up. Expensive rents. And then those single people, especially the single people, at no children or anything like that, especially for them. So we need to kind of look at houses for our children that's able to afford to move out of their family home and start their own home with fair rents. And what I feel is basically that over the past 20 years, Stormont has not done that for any of our children. And I think that the pressure should be put on from the government to the housing cyclists and housing associations and whoever else to buy up the lands, because if private people can buy the lands to build private houses, surely the housing cyclists should be able to do that as well. Thank you.
Continuing on the theme of homelessness and homes, I've got a question from the floor from Hazel Dini.
I've been listening to the panel and what the panel and everybody in the panel has touched on homelessness and housing. But just to take the statistics back a bit, yes, there are 40,000 people in Northern Ireland sitting waiting to be rehoused on the housing list. There was 110,000 people affected last year by hitting homelessness, and another 16,000 people presented in 2021. There are 7,000 households throughout Northern Ireland in temporary supported accommodation. So if the panel are elected, are they going to support a multi-budget that goes in, that, as Ryan says, rises year after year to support the housing and the homelessness? Because it's grand and dandy, people sitting up and saying, I've done this and I've done that. Yesterday, for £49, people were getting 37 units of gas. Homeless people in particular, their money's not going up. There's some homeless people in our organisation are coming out with £54 a fortnight. And we're talking about social housing, and the last point that I'll make is some housing associations now are starting that if you're awarded a house, you have to put down 2 weeks to a month's rent. if you're working, you have to put down 4 weeks rent, and if you're not working, 2 weeks rent. How are people, even if they're allocated houses, going to be able to afford to move in?
The panel want to comment? Ryan?
Good question. So your last one, no, they can't afford it, and they shouldn't be expected to do it. Your first question, multi-year budget. Yes, let's do our jobs. It's that simple.
Go ahead. Garrett?
Well, here's on the issue of the multi-year budget. It's something we've been proposing for some time, and it's something that will be delivered. It's very difficult to invest in any area without having that long-term plan. It needs to be a strategic plan, and I hope we're going to come on to the issue of the Northern Protocol, the issue of the cost of living, which you're now touching on. Because short-term, small interventions are not the way forward. So we're going to get in, no doubt, to the 300 million and what we can do. What the answer isn't is, well, let's just fire out X amount of money. Once that's spent, it's gone. We have to look at long-term solutions. The way we can do those long-term solutions is providing a 3-year budget. And in answer to your question, I think it's an absolute disgrace that housing associations are doing that. And again, I know you'll hear me hark back in terms of what we've done, but it is vitally important that people understand that it is about record here. It is about record. It is where you have been, what you have done. And I understand, in fairness to his issues, a new candidate, Brian, has been in the council since 2019. It is important that you look at record, and that's something I'll be standing on.
But it doesn't really answer the question of what the panel's going to do. How are people going to afford to move into social housing if they have to pay a deposit, or if they're working? Just because you're working, you're being penalised. How could anybody afford to put down a month's salary when the cost of living has rose to be allocated a social house? And what are we doing to support the homeless families? The homelessness in this city is the second largest in the whole of Northern Ireland.
Garrett, do you want to come back to that first?
Yeah, well, what we're going to do is we're going to challenge those housing associations to tell them that that's not honest, not the way forward. People know that they're struggling. We've seen in the past where people have come to ourselves to private rent, and we've been able to provide support letters and assistance to say, look, these people are homeless, these people are in need, they are vulnerable, and we'll walk alongside them to ensure that whatever support and access to services that they need, that they will get it. But there is a wider point about the issue that people are facing around energy prices and the cost of living, and that's why I've met firsthand directly and sat across the table from Firmus Gas, and I told them it was an absolute disgrace. That being said, to be honest, they didn't care. And the only way that we're going to overcome that is, first of all, ensuring that we look at our model and how we heat our homes and provide energy support schemes and energy efficiency to those homes that we built. Because we need to reduce those costs so people don't have to do that in the first place. So those are things that we're going to do. And I hope that whenever we do get back into an executive, that the cost of living will be the priority. But ultimately, we also need to recognise that it's not an either-or situation. I want to address health, education, and all of the other areas like Brian and Lizzie, but I'm not going to ignore the fact that the Northern Ireland Protocol exists. The Northern Ireland Protocol also impacts on the cost of living and the fact that increase in prices within our supermarkets, the lack of choice.
I think we're going to come on to protocol.
It's a wider point in terms of it's not just as simple as do your jobs. Because I do my job and I turn up to work, but we will get into the point of why they won't be an executive in the short term.
Liz, I'm conscious you didn't get the chance to respond to the homelessness question. Do you want to add to it?
Yeah, I would. Not up to speed on the statistics of the homeless, but what I do remember is when this 12-week lockdown, they were able to get all the homeless people off the streets. Now I'm mortified that they actually put them back out on the streets. I think the government should have done a lot more for our homeless. If they were able to provide them up in a hotel, they should be doing that now until they get those houses. I think it's a disgrace that we're in the 20th century and still no houses and people being homeless. I think it shouldn't be, not in this day and age. But again, it comes down to what I've been saying even about my son. He can't afford to go out, even on private rent because of the deposits. The housing executives or the housing association, they shouldn't be asking, or shouldn't even have the nerve to be asking people for a month's salary. I think I think the Assembly should be speaking up more, to be quite honest, to make sure that that's not allowed. They should be clamping that down and saying, no, they can't do that, because it's not fair, and ordinary people like ourselves, we're working hard to stay alive. You know, I'm working hard to stay alive. I'm finding that I'm struggling at the minute too, like everybody else, with this crisis with electric and the price of oil, the price of the oil. My son's struggling paying gas, my daughter as well. And like, I know those issues because I'm living them and I'm there. But I do feel really strongly that there should have been nobody on the streets, homeless in this city, whenever they were all able to be accommodated for those 12 weeks of lockdown. I don't see no reason why they couldn't have continued that support after the lockdown. Thank you.
Before we go on to some of the issues around protocol and others, there's one kind of social question here that's anonymous against, and it's addressed to all the parties. Maybe starting with yourself, Ryan, this time. What are your views on the pro-life movement?
So when you talk about pro-life or pro-choice, it sometimes puts you into a binary position. Like everything we do in Northern Ireland, it's you're left, you're right, you're green, you're orange, you're pro, you're not. But see, when you boil it down, it's deeply emotive. Some of you are female, you've got wombs, you've carried child, you've delivered, you may have went through abortions yourself, you could have had miscarriages. So it's not very nice sometimes just to do clean cut. So I'll give you my position. Bear with me. So I do have a personal position. I'm entitled to a personal position, as are you. But I do draw a line and separate, because why should I maybe enforce my personal views on you when it comes to choice? So I advocate for all lives as much as we can, especially when our heart starts beating. And I've seen it, I've got kids, and I would advocate trying to keep it as live as long as you can, right the way the old pensioner. But in reality, there is need for abortion services in the United Kingdom and in Northern Ireland. Everyone's got different sets of circumstances that I may not fully understand or fully appreciate. Whether it's incest, it could be rape, fetal abnormality, or a young girl, we just don't know. That's a conversation between a woman and their doctor of how they deal with that. It's not really on me to say, well, I'm going to take that away from you. Albeit personally, with my family, we could have a different decision than what you would. So I would advocate that heartbeats or thereabouts is look to protect the life. I advocate to protect the life of the mother and the child, but I would never legislate to stop someone from making that choice. So I know it's quite an emotional subject, but that's as clean cut as I can be, folks.
Very much a good choice. Elizabeth, yourself, what's your own on the TUV's stance on?
TUV is pro-life, and we cannot stand to back any form of abortion. Now, I'm a woman, and I believe if there were circumstances out there that was difficult for a woman, I believe that that woman should be counselled. They should be supported the whole way through the birth, all the way through the pregnancy up until the birth. Now, on rape, as Ryan has mentioned, I believe basically it's not that baby's fault. So if the mother was supported right up until the birth, and if she did not have that maternal bond at birth, then maybe that child should go to adoption. But I believe basically that the fundamental right is to life, and I feel it should be protected in all measures. Thank you.
My literature, it's clear that I'm a pro-life candidate. I have been pro-life all of my life. I think that it is important that when we talk about women, it's important that, of course, we respect the woman, but we also have to respect the man involved in the relationship, but also, most importantly, in those scenarios as well, it's the right to the unborn child. And I have heard and listened to various stories and various positions, and I know that it's a sensitive topic. That being said, I think that when I listen to those who have stories of people who've been encouraged to have an abortion and they've decided against that, those people do not regret that decision. I know it's a sensitive subject, but again, I have been very clear on that. One of the most disgusting and difficult positions that has been taken was one that was opposed on us by the Westminster government, and that's in relation to those babies who can be aborted now right up to birth for Down syndrome, cleft lip. It's a disgusting position, and I think in those circumstances it's completely wrong, and I have a very clear pro-life position, and it's something I will not deviate from under any circumstances.
Can I just want to let us all know that I am one proud mother of a cleft lip baby. And my son Gareth is 25, he's working in Seagate, and he owns his own home, and him and his partner moved in last year. My son would have been aborted with this law. This is why I am so strong against this abortion. He is so perfect in every way, and I love him to bits. I'm so proud of him. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I know we've kind of touched on it a wee bit already, but we've got a question here about the P word, the protocol word. Again, it's anonymous, but it's geared at all three candidates. Here we go. If the protocol doesn't go, how do the parties carry on? Where do you stand? Start with yourself this time around.
Sure. So, I am opposed to the protocol on 2 counts. Despite what you hear in the news, using it as an election campaign, it does erode our constitutional position. It needs removed. It needs the very least replaced. The other aspect is the economic imbalance. It's either feast or famine. Now, I could go through and read quite a lot of quotes from other parties, but I suspect you've done your research from those who endorsed it, best of both worlds, this and that. I'm not going to waste your time. But what I'm not going to do is throw my people under the bus. It wasn't their fault. I'm not going to ruin somebody's chances of trying to heat their home or put food in their belly and stay out of government because of the protocol. I want it removed. Pulling the executive has done what so far to remove the protocol, folks? It's done absolutely nothing. So it was a strategic decision for Sir Geoffrey, but it was a catastrophic one. And the only people who pay for it is us every single time. So yeah, I'll go into government, I'll take a position, and I'll deliver. I still advocate and try as much as we can to remove the protocol. It's not going to be decided in Stormont, certainly not right away. There is, within the protocol itself, for a vote in 2024, I think. That's far too long away. UK government signed it, Boris Johnson signed it. There's an MP called Mr Habib who bloody voted for it, but yet we give him a stage all around Northern Ireland telling how bad the protocol is. You've got to research these facts and hold people to account. They try and browbeat us into one way. So yes, I am against the protocol. I want it removed. The solutions are in there from 2020, the command paper, whether it's legislate for any goods coming in from Great Britain to Northern Ireland, should just have a label on it. It's a criminal offence to take it across in the Republic of Ireland. There's ways of doing this without eroding our constitutional and economic imbalance. But walking out of government isn't one of the solutions, folks. Far from it. If you think so, you tell me different. Because so far I've seen no movement on UK governments internally here, apart from election slogans and campaigns. Let's get back to the realities of life.
Just before we move on from yourself, Ryan, I mean, a few months ago, particularly after the start of anti-protocol rallies, the Ulster Unionist Party took a abstentionist view to participate in those rallies. Do you want to comment on that? Do you think it might have harmed the party in your election hopes, or do you stand by the decision?
I'll be open with you, folks. I was reading that and thought, oh, what's going on here? Because I'm a unionist, why would I not? But to try and say, well, if all the other unionists do it, then it must be right, then we must follow suit. Why should I go in your buildings and stand on a stage with somebody who is from Belfast, unelected, and see the next morning after that protocol rally, do you know where I was? Clearing up the rubbish, speaking to the people who were not consulted or where that was going. So see, when it comes to things like that there, I represent my people and I speak for them. I'm not going to be browbeaten by somebody in Belfast to try and rile me up and tell me how much or how less of a unionist I am because I don't attend a rally. Doug Beattie's points, we could have handled it better. I think he came across a bit odd. Maybe consult a bit more with your loyal orders and other unionists. But we made a position and we've stuck to it. Some of the kickback that some of them have not shown us some good light as unionists. But the large, vast majority, those who support the anti-protocol movement, I stand with you. I'm just not going to stand on a stage with somebody from Belfast who doesn't speak for you. And see, whenever things go wrong, nowhere to be seen. Up the hill.
Elizabeth, given the fact that the dropping the protocol or no Irish Sea border is kind of central to your mandate, I'm sure you have something to comment on where you see the protocol, and you were, well, I suppose what people found to be a bit surprising on Saturday as well was that your party leader was there on Saturday evening, but he didn't give you the platform as a local resident. How do you feel about that?
Oh, I'm alright with that. I don't do all that. You're a better talker than me, anyway. No, about this protocol, there are 45 directives of EU directives in this protocol that we have to abide by. Now, EU succeeds UK law, so they're the highest, you know. So we cannot make any of the rules and legislation in this country. We have to take it by the EU. So we can't do anything to change any of the laws. So this is where we were at with the sea border. If I am basically your MLA, if you return me as your MLA, I will stand with Jim Alistair in Stormont and fight for removal. We don't believe that there's any tinkering or making improvements or anything. It has to go. With this EU sea border, we cannot drop the 5% VAT on the fuel because EU won't allow it. The UK could do that, but with the sea border, this is why we're paying for our diesel through our nose, our gas and our oil, because we cannot get out. Now when we voted in the referendum to leave the EU, we didn't ask to be kept behind. We all wanted to be part of the UK and equal rights of parts of the UK. We did not want to be standing aside with a sea border, partitioned from a very country, or very NHS. Because this is what this sea border is aiming at, Irish unity, which the IRA was fighting for over 40 years, but we defeated them. And then we ended up with Stormont. And every year, we must vote DUP. They keep Sinn Féin out. And what did they do every year? We voted them. Walked in the government side by side with Sinn Féin. I'm just going to tell you this. If I'm your MLA candidate and you give me the opportunity to represent you, I with Jim Alistair will fight for the removal of this sea border. And we will not elect a deputy first minister, so there'll be no Sinn Féin first minister, and no party has ever said it. We have to be clear, and the TUV is clear in the message that we are setting out. The rallies is a protest to let EU and the Republic of Ireland know we're not standing for the sea border. It is not basically for political gain. It is to get people like you, people like me, message out there that we're not going to stand for the sea border and it has to go. In the words of Martina Anderson in the EU state, you can shove your Irish sea border up where the sun don't shine. Well, we have to say that about our sea border. We don't want no Irish sea border. It should never be petitioned. Never be petitioned from our UK. From our Queen and from our country, and has what Doug Beattie said to replace the national anthem of our Queen at the sports complex and the football matches.
Okay, thanks, Liz.
I could go on all night.
It's pretty clear where Elizabeth sees the Irish sea border. You want to reflect this? I mean, for example, there's chat of the DUP not standing in Stormont after the elections if the protocol doesn't go. Is that a red line still for you?
I think the big point is I don't see why you want to on that stage on Saturday. I think you're more than capable, Lizzie. In terms of the executive, we made it clear that the Northern Ireland Protocol has to go. We made it clear that until the Northern Ireland Protocol is dealt with, we will not be going back into the executive. In terms of Northern Ireland Protocol, again, when we go out in the doors, of course, is Northern Ireland Protocol the only issue? No, it is not. There's other issues that were mentioned. But when it comes back to it, the protocol does be mentioned, because as I remind people, I've sat personally, others talk about it and say what they want. I have sat opposite Maros Sefcovic, who's the EU negotiator. He's made it adamantly clear that he doesn't give a hoot what unionists think. He doesn't give a hoot actually what the Northern Ireland people think. He will do what is in the best interests of the European Union. We had, and Jeffrey, when he became leader, made it clear. And we were listening to people, despite we have a very audience tonight. And we were listening to people, and people made it clear that you need to take a stand in the Northern Ireland Protocol. We have grace periods in place at this minute in time which are protecting all of us from the worst aspects. And the UK government took a unilateral decision to keep those grace periods in place. When those grace periods are removed, the number of checks between GB and between Great Britain and Northern Ireland will exceed all of the checks which take place across the entire EU. That's the level that we're dealing with. Try and bring a plant or a tree in from GB into Northern Ireland, you'll see the difficulties you have. We've seen the challenges around the health service, trying to bring medicines into Northern Ireland as well. It's affecting every aspect of our society. And I'm sorry, we do major disagree in terms of the Ulster Unionist Party at this moment in time. I was at the rally on Saturday night, and I was proud to stand with fellow unionists and loyalists. And I think it is important to stand together. And despite what has been said, movement has taken place. And here's why the movement has taken place. The European Union published their white paper, which basically said what they can do within one fell swoop is remove 80% of the checks. Just sign up to it now. And our point is, well, sorry, if you can remove 80% of the checks with a swipe of a pen, then why were those checks there in the first place? Other than to punish Northern Ireland for taking, and punish the UK for taking the decision to dare leave the European Union. So this isn't the situation we walk into Stirling with our tails between our legs and deciding, let's just get back and let's just talk about it and create more north-south bodies and let's just hope that it goes away. It is not going away unless unionists stand together. And unionists have been standing together, and I hope that the Ulster Unionist Party, the leadership of Doug Beattie, decide to come back into that fold, because that is the only way that we're going to ensure that this is dealt with. And there's a reality check, folks, because I hear about Sinn Féin and them being in government. There's 5 parties in the Northern Ireland Executive. It's made up of the Ulster Unionist Party, the DUP, and the others, as you know. They all sit in government. Jim Allister sits in Stormont with Sinn Féin as well. I don't want them to be there. People vote for them. And as much as people don't like it.
You've been a speaker.
What?
You want them there? You voted for last year.
Let's take on that point. So, Alex Maskey, when the decision came to put in a speaker,
Did you vote for
the Democratic, well, if you're not
Excuse me, sir, let him speak.
We're not going to get anywhere if you don't let me speak.
Well, so yes or no?
Well, here I'm going to answer it. No, it's yes or no in your opinion, but it's not. Because the DUP had a decision to make. We had one more member than Sinn Féin, okay? Had we taken on the Speaker's position, we would have had equal numbers. Now see, when it comes to important, and people need to understand this, because it's vitally important in this election. See, when it comes to issues such as integrated education, when it comes to issues such as abortion, Irish language legislation, every vote in the Assembly matters. And you can be clear that when the DUP stand on those issues, we will stand on them. We will not, our party won't be divided in some sort of excuse as to conscience. That's the reason why. So when it comes to the next election, I'd like to make no apology for ensuring that we have as many seats to fight against this stuff going forward as well.
Okay, folks, we're coming to the last 20 minutes, and what I want to do is I want to ask a couple of questions here that are based on the actual election itself, and then we've actually gathered 3 individual questions which are aimed at each of the individual candidates, so I want to get to those as well. The next one kind of leads on a wee bit about what we touched on there in the question from the floor in terms of sharing office. It's a question from Christine Mitchell. Go ahead, Christine.
Jim Allister has made it clear that he will not be elected a Deputy First Minister if Sinn Féin is the largest party after the next election. And all the polls have indicated that they will be.
So can I ask Ryan McVitie, as the Ulster Unionist Party, yes or no, if they're going to appoint a Deputy First Minister to be in government with Sinn Féin, who the Chief Constable actually says are still talking to their Army Council?
Yeah, they've been talking Army
Well, I
Council.
think we'll put that question to all the candidates you can bring. But go ahead first, Ryan. Yeah.
So they've been in government for how long now? All parties have been working with them. So why do we change things if democracy doesn't fall our way? So are we democratic or are we not?
So you're happy enough then to go in with Sinn Féin for all the trouble that they brought here to Northern Ireland? They have never been repentant. They've never said they're sorry.
Yeah.
It's probably all right for you, Ryan, but you may not have lost a relative through the troubles. There's no truth from them. There's families still today because the army has records, the police have records, they are don't, so they're walking the streets. So you're happy enough to go in and sit beside people?
I'm not happy about it. But see, when it comes to doing your duty, the same way I did in the military, and I did serve in Northern Ireland,
Oh, I
I
do.
fought against pirate, INLA, you name it, at them all. But for the sake of our children, am I going to hold back the entirety of our community and all of Northern Ireland because of it? No, I'm
Well,
not.
have you told Doug Beattie that? Because he can't answer the question.
Right, okay, so see the question is, if you get enough members or enough seats, then you're in a position to say, am I going to be the First Minister? Or if you don't have enough, you're going to be the Deputy First Minister. And see the facts is, Deputy and First Minister are exactly the same. Legally, regulatory, anything. The First Minister can't send bog to the Craig without the Deputy First Minister's signature. If you swap them over, it doesn't change anything. It looks really bad on unionism because we don't have the largest party. Do you know what the big issue there is? Unionists don't vote. If you're a unionist and you don't vote, you're not a unionist. I've said that on the doors to young people, my own age and older people. So if you want to keep a Sinn Féin First Minister out, get unionists out to vote. Because that's what I've been doing for the last 6 months, to inspire them to vote. And I'm not going to let Sinn Féin dictate the future of unionism. There's a democratic mechanism in place. Good Friday Agreement, it's not perfect, got us out of conflict. Does it need change? Yes, it does. But I'm not going to throw my people under the bus because of something happened 40 years ago. And I do stand by the survivors and those groups like SEF. I stand with you and I get it. But I can't, how do we move forward?
Well, why doesn't Doug Beattie come out and say that?
Because, so all parties haven't, so Doug Beattie gets a hard...
He hasn't said it. He's...
Christine, I think we're about to give the other
It's a good point.
candidates a chance here.
All parties, with the exception of Jim Alistair, in fairness, have said that. Because everybody wants to be first. They go out to win. So they're not going to say, well, I'm going to go number 2. And see the actual form of government, you need to have negotiations, work out, based on your manifesto, they have a programme for government. And then you work out who's in government, who's in opposition. That's why they won't say it. They won't commit to being in government or in opposition. So I'm not going to discriminate against a political party because they're nationalists or Catholics or Protestants or Unionists. Democracy, folks, is democracy.
Okay, thanks, Ryan. Gary, yourself, we've already talked about the protocol as being a potential red line. Is Sinn Féin First Minister the second red line for pulling down Stormont or refusing to go back into Stormont?
Well, the protocol is an absolute red line. I do share one of Ryan's points around the fact that I am not running for this election in a defeated mode. So do not listen to the polls that you're reading at this moment in time. Do not listen to some of the social media nonsense and those who, many of them who I know quite well, keyboard warriors. What we need is people to come out on election day. Because see these loyalists who their only contribution is sitting on the keyboard. That's not enough. We need people to come out and to support the unionist candidates. There's 3 here. There's 3 candidates. One of us can be elected. And I say can, I'm not saying will. One of us can be elected. The only way that happens is through unionist cooperation, ensuring that unionists transfer their votes. If we're losing seats, folks, in constituencies like Foyle, unionism is in for a very, very bad day. What we need to ensure is that unionists come out. I am encouraged by the range of people that's here tonight, and I differ no doubt with some of you in terms of policies and all of that. But please ensure that you get your families out, all of your friends out, and ensure that unionism does come back and win. Because I don't buy it. Yes, the office of First and Deputy First Minister is a joint role. But let's not be under no illusion that the First Minister is the person who speaks on behalf of the Northern Ireland Government when it comes to meetings with other devolved assemblies and other administrations. The First Minister is the person that welcomes our royal family here to Northern Ireland. The First Minister is the person that people go to whenever they want to hear a voice from Northern Ireland. It's in our interest and it's in our power to ensure that we have a unionist First Minister, and that's what we're working towards.
Thanks, Gary. Kind of leads on to what you were saying here. Someone asked a question around in the read out here, but I think you basically answered the question. Anyway, the big picture for unionists in Foyle is how do we ensure there's a unionist elected on May the 5th? Will each candidate publicly commit to advise their voters to transfer to other unionists? And then another point someone was making here, saying in a minute, I have a message here that Mr MP Gregory Campbell had up on social media a couple of days ago, and I quote and highlight, Gary Middleton is the only unionist who can win a seat. They're asking, how can that be? Surely if more people vote for Ryan or Elizabeth, they can win the seat. So he's asking, can I ask you, Gary, what your thoughts are on this? Would you actually like the post?
People watch social media very carefully. You have to watch what you like and retweet and share. Let's go to the point, first of all, in terms of the issue of one unionist seat. So anybody in this room who has looked at the 2017 Assembly election results will know that there were 5 seats as opposed to 6 in 2016. In the last panel we done here with other 2 candidates, we had 6 seats and there were 3 unionists standing. This time round, there are 14 candidates on the ballot paper, there are 3 unionists, and we're going after just 1 quota. So at the last election, in 2017, the Democratic Unionist Party polled 13.4% of the vote. The Ulster Unionists polled 3%. Now, at that time, there was no TUV candidate. This time there is. So when we talk about unionists splitting the vote, when I stood in an election in terms of the first preferences, I say I got 13% of the share. Sadly, half the Ulster Unionist Party vote did not transfer to unionism. Only 800 votes did out of the 1,600. The rest went everywhere else. Now, I put it down to the time Mike Nesbitt's advice to vote for the SDLP over unionism. I hope that's not the case this time, because I think it is important that in this panel, each of the candidates makes it very clear, it's all my literature, and I'm telling people in the doors, vote Middleton 1 and vote for the other unionist candidates. If we do not do that, I can assure you there will not be a unionist candidate or a unionist elected, because there's not enough, there's not the votes to elect a unionist candidate. So when people talk about the party best placed to win, it is the Democratic Unionist Party, because we have been the people that have been working on the ground. I know what I'm hearing on doors. I know what I'm hearing from people. And as I say, the real poll and the real vote will take place on the 5th of May. But my ultimate priority, Brian, sorry, just to finish up, my ultimate priority, I want to see a unionist elected. I don't want to see people before profit. In 2017, people before profit were 500 votes behind me. 500? What's 500 in a city like this? We need people to come out and we need people to transfer down the ticket.
Right. Should we get something to mark that?
Could I ask Gary Middleton, why can we not have a united unionist candidate here? And you're talking about that you can represent the people. There's the man I believe you represent. We have 3 people. I'm voting Brian McVitie, number 1.
Okay, so I'll just let Brian say what he was going to say there.
Excuse me. I sat here with other people that are able to speak. It was not, I am discussing with the DUP and how they treated a good leader, Armin Foster, and you have lost a lot of good DUP votes. And the only man to see forward is Brian McVitie.
I don't know how to follow that one. That's what it is. I've been out of doors. I have been encouraging people to use their votes, their preferences. I've actually spent more time outdoors trying to encourage people to give it to Gary. Let's be honest. Because a lot of people haven't said they give it to. And I've stood there, I've said, look, we need as unionists, if you want to see, to give it to. Because I do need Gary's transfers to get in, to get the seat. People say, oh, you're not doing 1, 2, 3. Get on the doors with me. Those of you in here who I've spoken with personally, you know I've vouched for that, and I've done it. I can't say the same for other candidates. I've been out there because when I've got to the doors, they've been telling me different stories because they've had a number of candidates round. So yeah, it's fine saying it here, but I'm a man of my word. When I make a promise, I keep it.
Elspeth, do you want to add your thoughts on transferable votes?
Yeah, well, I'm not a man, I am a woman, and it is a very important question and statement at this time. So please give a woman the opportunity, because us women are not easily pushed over. Like Arlene Foster, Margaret Thatcher, and Theresa May. I am the next woman. I am the next woman. But I am going to say yes, keep all the unions. Me first. And DUP or UP, whatever it's second and third. Please vote unions, it doesn't matter to me, as long as I'm first. As long as I'm first. Now, basically, as I said, I really got an opportunity to speak basically there about the earlier question. Yes, about the sea border and the First Minister. Yes, Jim has been, and the TUV are so clear on that. We will not appoint a Sinn Féin, or Deputy First Minister if the Sinn Féin are the largest party. We're absolutely. Jim has spoke on View from Stormont about this, about the coalition and the coalition of the willing. Where that actually means that you can still go into Stormont, do your job, but there'll be no party able to walk out to collapse Stormont the way it has actually been happening. As I say, I'm supportive of the DUP walking out now, but I'm sorry we didn't put the sea border there. So that is something that has turned me from the DUP to be standing here today, to be honest. Not Gary personally, this is the DUP. Now you have to realise we're faces of our parties. And what Jim says is a spade, and we stick to that, and I'll do the exact same, because I'm afraid anyone that knows me, what I say, I keep to it. I don't backtrack on anything that I do say. I will promise that I will work for the people of Foyle if I'm given a chance as the woman, not as a man, and I am a woman. And I can tell you what a woman is. A woman has got a part in her body to add life, womb, which is a very vital thing for women. And I'm just putting this out here. A transgender woman cannot have a baby. So, if you want to know what a woman is you're looking at a woman. A woman has
Thank you. Okay, folks, we're drawing very, very close to the end here, and you know, there's one other final question from the floor. What we've heard tonight, you know, there's a strong possibility after next Thursday that A, the protocol isn't lifted, and B, that there's a Sinn Féin minister that the executive won't stand. So we hear that pretty strongly. So there's a question here from Robert Dean.
My question relates to post-election. If the candidate, if any of the candidates are elected, do they propose to continue on with, quite frankly, the ethically outrageous practice of taking a salary while the Stormont is actually suspended?
Start with you, Ryan. What's your take on payment after within a suspended Stormont?
Worked 20 years, largely from crime. When I turned up, I got paid. If I didn't, I actually went to jail. Didn't get paid, I was gone. Got 2 or 3 days pay in my time. I've said around 3 months. I've kind of committed them a few hustings because I don't want to get paid by the public purse, which is your money, frankly. So we said, how about public money? It's yours, comes from your rates, comes from your taxes. And so I have to make a decision in 3 months whether I step away, how do I do that, and look for another job somewhere, because if I'm not doing my job in Stormont, then I'll make my own money.
Yeah, I don't think if an MLA can't be in Stormont doing their job, they should get paid. I don't believe they should. I think they shouldn't get paid for not doing the work. I also believe that basically that happy pay raise that they give themselves, if they give us, the NHS workers, frontline workers, pay raises, the transport bus, if they give the teaching staff and the teachers and everyone else that's working on that front line, the bundmen, you name it, proper wages, instead of giving themselves one, it might have been better off.
Good question, Robert. In terms of the pay, by the way, we don't set our pay. The pay is set by an independent panel. I donate my additional salary. I don't like to say that publicly, but when put in that corner, I do, because I don't want people thinking that I take it. In terms of when the election happens and when people vote, I'm not going to commit to walking away after 3 months. I could have walked away whenever the Shinners held the executive up for 3 years, but I didn't. What I did was I stood by my constituents because I know that they needed me. I know that those constituents who wanted to come to my office and speak to me directly, I was there and was on the ground to help them. But what I will make a commitment to is that I think that the Assembly, if it does not sit, that the Assembly members should be, their salaries should be reduced in line with the previous time, in terms of giving recognition for the fact that the constituency office and the constituency work continues. What I don't want to do is give a commitment to walk away, folks. It's not going to happen. There's going to be 24 weeks after this election, and the new legislation has ensured that ministers, the current ministers in place, the health economy ministers, so this idea there's no government, the ministers are in place at this minute in time and can and will take decisions, and they will do that for 24 weeks after the next election. We have 24 weeks after the election to resolve the issue around the Northern Ireland Protocol. We have 24 weeks after the election to ensure that we can set a programme for government to deliver for each and every one of you in the issues that matter. After that 24 weeks, if that doesn't happen, it's back to the electorate. It's back to you to decide again. But what I want to ensure you is, look, you have to come out and vote in this election to ensure that we can send as strong a message on behalf of unionism as possible.
Brian, sorry if I could just come in there.
No, sorry, I just want to give Robert a chance if he wants to respond first. You okay?
Okay, yeah.
Okay. No, sorry, go ahead, James. He's okay.
Just to tell you that we're due to finish at 9. It is 9, but if the 3 people on the stage are prepared to do another 15 minutes, I made a wee call to the key holder, the headmaster of the school, only if we allow him to have a comment here. Now, is that okay with people on the stage?
If we're happy to, as I said, there's one individual question per candidate as well I'd like to ask, but if you could want the back there, James, was first, you want to take that first? Yeah.
Thanks, particularly the panel. It's good to see different people from me getting a grill on here. It makes a good change. I just want to make a comment for the 3 panellists. The first thing I would say is from a strategic point of view, and I'm speaking now as a principal. Strategically, I believe we are being let down in the northwest and in the Londonderry area, and I'll tell you why. Because party policy of the 3 parties that you represent are built, formulated, manufactured and rolled out with the local constituency of the political leader in mind, in my view, because they're often seeking votes on their own doorstep. I also believe that Londonderry is like a bolt-on. Government is central in Belfast, maybe in the North Down area, and we are the add-on. So quite often I feel as though we're the wee Jack Russell, waiting at the table while their political masters feed us scraps. Now, in terms of the PUL community, I feel like we're the cat waiting on the Jack Russell to leave some leftovers so that we can have scraps from the table. So in my view, we're at the end of the food chain. Now, in terms of each of the parties, strategically, I see no sign that either party sees Londonderry as a strategic powerhouse in Northern Ireland going forward. You have mentioned, and I actually paid attention to the language that each of you used, and you talked about being the voice for the area. I don't want a voice. I want Londonderry to be central to every decision that is taken for Northern Ireland. What I don't want is to have to vote for a politician who has to go to the table and beg his political masters for some favours for the Londonderry area. And that's how it feels. So which one of you can ensure that Londonderry becomes a strategic driver for all of those things that you talked about in Northern Ireland? Or are we going to be sitting here in another 4 or 5 years talking about the voice again? Because that's what we've had in the past. past, folks.
Thanks, Mickey. Anything you want to comment? Elizabeth, yeah, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Allen. You just brought to attention something that I, too, as a frontline worker, is thinking about Londonderry. We are less paid than any of the rest of the trusts. The Western Trust is the lowest paid from all of them. Why is that? Again, you are correct. Londonderry is getting the scraps. No one is standing up for the people of Londonderry. Nobody. In Stormont anyway. Otherwise the Western Trust would be on equal pay. The Belfast Trust, the Northern Trust, the Eastern Trust, they are all on higher wage salaries than we are. And that's not fair. We need to basically put this city on the map in Stormont. And we need investment in jobs, investment in houses, investment in education. Our schools are struggling to teach our children over that pandemic. And this school, I have to take my hat off to Mr. Allen. The support that he gave all his pupils over that pandemic, my daughter included, in that is amazing. Amazing support from the headmaster. I couldn't believe it myself what I was actually seeing. You know, this school was dedicated to its pupils. We need our MLAs to be dedicated to the city and to every aspect of every individual, regardless of what you do as a career. And basically, as I say, if I'm your voice, I'm going to say voice because I'm going to speak on behalf of all you in Stormont. So that's why I'm saying I'm going to be your voice. But your voice has to count, and it has to count on election day. And I have to say, basically, you've made your number one and vote unions down.
Okay, thanks, Lizzie.
Thank you.
Ryan, do you want to comment? Thank you, sir.
Actions are needed. Here's a couple of them. You need to get into government. The only people who suffer is you. And if we're at the bottom of the food table, we suffer most. That's basic maths. There's a free port on offer for this entire city and the northwest region economically. It's been sitting on the shelf for some time. There was one used in Shannon Port many years ago. And the jump from jobs of 3,000 to 7,000 in 5 years. It attracts things like investment because you can have capital grants, there's tax rebates, research and development. You link it into the city. So that action there is what puts us on the map. So it's fine saying we're X, Y, and Z. That is something that I have brought up to my party. I've said, look, this is it. This is the big driver for me in the Northwest. I've demonstrated I stood up to leaders before in the Democratic Unionist Party. Both of them. I stand up to Doug Beattie on a weekly basis and other educational issues separately. So, as an economic driver, a free port. We mentioned about the city deals, which are already there being rolled out. Those city deals can't become a reality until they're signed off at a ministerial level. That 4 months is going to go into that. Are we left with another 500 million for our city which can't be spent? Come on, folks. If you keep doing that same thing that you've done the last time, you'll end up right here with another 3 faces in 4 years asking the same things. Think differently and act differently.
Comment, Gary, it's something I suppose we wanted to bring up during the night as well. Despite the negativity that some political parties portray of our wee country, it's one of the fastest growing cities in Europe at the moment in terms of fintech, other industries. Belfast is overheating so much that people from Belfast are buying houses in Drummelhole. When you comment or when you respond to what Michael says, well, why do we hear DUP and other parties shouting that from the rooftops? Why are we still portraying an international message that we're a basket case when it's quite obviously they don't?
Well, it's a valid point, because I've sat along with other candidates at Hustings events and came away from them absolutely depressed. Because you would think that this city has absolutely nothing. We have a lot to offer. We've come a long way. When I stood up and talked about the time that I first came into council, if I compare 2010 to where we are now in 2022, it's a heck of a change in terms of where the city's at. Now, in terms of Michael's comments, and Mr. Allen, maybe I should call you in the school, you're right to a certain, and I agree with you to a certain degree. I agree that in the past, unionism The city has at times had to fight for every single thing that it has. And it does still to a certain degree. But what I would say in terms of our particular party and the commitment, I don't see it any longer as the leftovers. The party put their faith in me, through your support, to go into the executive as a junior minister. Now I was able to provide, and I know you don't like the word, a voice, but it also was able to provide action. So when we talk about the establishment of a high street task force, and if you open that brochure, you will see that the Guildhall in Londonderry is on the front page. Now, that's an image. And let me tell you something, it's changing people. It's changing mindsets. No longer is it Northwest versus Belfast or Londonderry versus Coleraine. It shouldn't be that. We're a fantastic city. We were the first ever UK city of culture. We've shown that we have the people, the culture, the skills, all of that. What we need to do is take our heads and lift them up the ways and decide that, you know what, this is a place that people should invest in. That it is a place that's changing, that it's an ever-growing environment that we want to bring our families up in. So I want to just give a commitment. You asked in terms of a commitment. I can give you a commitment, but in terms of my party, this is not a bolt-on. We've seen the delivery of the medical school, we've seen the delivery of the radiotherapy centre, we've seen the investment that's been made in this city. And I just ask people to please search your hearts and look at what the delivery has taken place over this past couple of years.
Well, folks, I was going to give everyone the final question, but I don't think we've kind of time to be fair to the school here looking to lock up. But I'm going to give one opportunity from the floor if anyone has any final question before we do finish up here, down here on the right.
Why, this is the other panel, why do I still feel like an underprivileged Protestant? Right?
I don't know.
And my answer is, why do I feel underprivileged?
I don't know. You tell me.
You tell me, you're going to stand for me if I would be.
Oh, well, so when I stand for people, I don't just assume these things. I go and I listen. I try and analyse, well, what are the issues. I can't make assumptions whether if it's a religious aspect or a geographical aspect of where you live. And that's why, so in my journey, and I want to do through politics, I want a bigger platform. I want to reach the entirety of the Northwest in the Foyle constituency. So actually, like young guys from Tully Alley, 12 months ago, we were rioting, someone got lifted, and having a conversation with those guys right now of decisions you make and where you end up. I want to inspire every young person that I meet so that they do feel valued and they've got a good start to life. So we don't have the conversation in 20 years' time where you're now asking me, why do you still feel like an underprivileged Protestant in Londonderry? I'm going to be back 2 years.
I like your answer, thank you. Same to you, Gareth. Why do I still, after all these years of...
You're taking my job here.
Sorry. Of all these years of DUP being in power, why am I still feeling underprivileged?
Well, I believe that every child needs to have a fair start in life, okay? We've seen changes in terms of some of the reports that have been brought forward in terms of underachievement and trying to address from the school level up. So we need to ensure that whenever young people come forward from whatever background, particularly the working class Protestant background, and that they have a fair start. But it's also about ensuring that when decisions are being taken, so I speak to many people across unionist communities, and when they see decisions being taken in the council around cultural issues and not being able to plant a rose bush in Stormont or not being able to do various things, not getting support for also Scots worker, yet there's Irish like those types of things feed into negativity and they feed into this feeling that there's almost a second-class citizen. That's something I've fought for and fought against all my life. When I came into politics, I'm from New Balance, make no shame about that.
All three of you are now, the matter.
No, just two of us. There's another one from Tully Alley, but there's some other communities.
There's good things happening from New Balance.
Yeah, the point that I'm making is that look, we need to ensure that everybody has a fair start and equal opportunities, okay? And the way we do that is ensuring that people feel that they're valued, ensuring that whenever funding is brought down, that the same funding goes into new buildings as does any other area, or I'm using New Buildings as an example, but in terms of the water side. We have seen improvements, and I'm not taking away from your experience in terms of feeling...
I don't think it's just my experience. We can't get houses. We have one school, one secondary school. We have nothing. We are underprivileged Protestants, and I'm feeling it. My family's feeling it, and I'm sure my own community's feeling it. We can't get houses, and these houses, These houses down here that you fought for, that are private, they started out, did they not, to be social housing?
They started off private and they're going to be social. But I don't take away, your point is exactly...
Sorry if we just cut across you, my time is against us here, but if I was sitting on the stage, I'd actually turn around and say to Sylvia, have you been inspired tonight by the candidates? Do you see a brighter future?
Well, there's one particular, yes. I just feel... Where are my teams? I just feel, look, all my life I was told to vote this way, that way, the other way, and it's always been da-da-da-da. And to me, the DUP have had their day, they've had the chance to make things better. Well, I have now changed my mind and Ryan's getting my vote.
Hey, before we finish, I'm conscious that Elizabeth didn't get a chance to respond to Sylvia, so...
Hi, Sylvia. Well, I'm like you, I feel the exact same. I feel we've been disadvantaged for everything, not just physically in houses, but in jobs. And basically, I just feel that year after year, our Ulster, our Britishness has been diluted and diluted and diluted. You know, Ulster Bus, now what's Ulster Bus? Translink, you know. The Royal Ulster Scalabry was like, now PSNI, okay? Now there's only a couple, but if you go on down the list, you'll get more and more and more. Anything with Ulster is taken out. You know, I'm surprised we still have the Ulster Bank, to be honest. Really. But...
Sum up, please.
So basically, I just feel we're disadvantaged in every part. But I just believe the government needs to start now and recognise and put more money into our schools so that our children can grow up and get the jobs and the skills what they do need. And the schools are still struggling for funding, and the schools should not have to be sending their children home with sponsorships or whatever. The government should be supporting the schools. And as you say, we have one school now. One school, the rest are all Catholic schools. You know, if we even had a fraction of their budget for this school, I think we'll be doing very well. Thank you.
Okay, folks, that's it. Just before we finish, I'd like to thank a few people. I'd like to thank our colleagues, the colleagues of the North West Cultural Partnership, James here, Andy, the technical experts, the back, and Derek has just come in there, Stevie, Adam, Kenny, and I think Julie's about there as well. We all helped pull this off. And of course to Michael Allen, listening school for the venue. To yourselves, a wonderful turnout, great interaction. Really appreciate you taking the time to hear our candidates. But last but not least, I mean, as I said earlier on, it's not easy being a politician. You know, it's not easy putting your head above the parapet. It's not easy coming into an environment like this. And I suppose the message I've been putting across consistently tonight is do vote, you know, and transfer your vote. I think that's a key thing. Who you vote for might have been swayed by what you heard tonight, but the message we'll put across as a partnership is, you know, vote unionists, make sure you vote, get your young people out voting, which is far too many from the PL community who don't vote at all. You know, so one final thanks to our three candidates. I'll give them a round of applause, please.